So guys, Toad back again, double dose in the morning, baby. Taking our meds, our medication consisting of, I don't know, football pills. Yeah, let's do it. Talking NFL, week 11 now. So last week, NFL 1-1, one really good play and one really not so good play. Houston Texans, who I'm going to be talking about in a little bit, won outright for us. That was nice, man. They were winning by 10. It was like wire to wire cover situation. Basically, it was a bad spot for Cincinnati. Houston was up 10 really late in the game. I think with like 4 minutes left, and then Cincinnati made that, like, they almost made a really crazy comeback. They got the touchdown to get within three. I think they forced Houston into a 3-and-out or something. Got the ball back one more time, and were able to tie the game. And then it's like, oh boy, I was sitting on a 7 on that one, so I think the most you can win by an overtime, I think, is 6, because if you go for the touchdown, I think you don't kick the extra point or whatever. I think it just ends if you get the touchdown. But even so, or if you had the 6.5, I guess you were good at that point as well. But even so, it was like, we want this money line cash. We want the outright cash. And Houston, man, C.J. Stroud, 2 weeks in a row, he leads a game-winning drive, and this time it was to get into field goal range, and they had their replacement kicker, I don't even know, after Fairbairn went down in that weird situation in the previous game. I don't even know who their kicker is. They picked up some guy off the street. I don't even know. Is he some former NFL kicker? He might be, probably. I have no idea. But they have a guy who's actually a kicker, at least, come in, and he was able to kick the game-winning field goal. Clutch, crucial field goal. So, hell yeah. Houston Texans, baby. And then the New York Giants with their mobster, crime family quarterback, Tommy DeVito from Goodfellas. They did not do well at all. They got blasted. And they even scored right at the end to make the score look even, like, make it cosmetically look better than it even actually was. So that was a bad play. We move on from that. What are we going to do? Let's talk about the Thursday night game first, because it's tonight, so why not? Quickly. Don't have a play on this one, but Bengals are at the Ravens. This is finally, we get like a decent Thursday night game here. This is interesting. Ravens have gone up from a 3-point favorite to a 3.5-point favorite. Unfortunately, I do not have the look-aheads available. So I didn't grab them before. Actually, I could probably find them if I wanted to, but it's not really going to factor in that much. I think some of these openers here in this left column are actually like look-aheads. Like, I don't think the Browns have actually gone down that much from 4.5 to 1. Ravens have gone up, I guess, from a 3 to 3.5-point favorite at home. They're somewhere in the 3.5 vicinity. Bengals, though, 74% of the cash and 69% of the tickets. So it looks like more of the cash might be on the Bengals side here. The cash discrepancy might be there. And I can tell you that it does look like there's professional play on the over, even though it is a Thursday night game. These are teams that are more familiar with each other, which might lead you to think like they're going to, well, especially because this is an epic game too, they're going to step up their defense. I don't know what the familiarity aspect of it does. I mean, it makes it so that your offense might be more like in rhythm though, I guess. But you can see 82% of the cash on the over, even though 50% of the tickets are on the under, because I think the public knows these Thursday night games tend to be ugly, low-scoring games that the professional bettors look like they expect this to be more of a high-scoring game, so I'll just point that out. But on the side, Ravens up to 3.5. Looks like more of the cash percentage is on the Bengals. Both of these teams had ugly losses in a way last week, but I think the Bengals one is more inexcusable. Like, they lost to a worse team than the Ravens did. They lost to the Houston Texans at home. They were losing most of that game, and it took like a comeback late to make it closer than it really even actually was. So that's what the Bengals are doing. They might have been looking ahead to this game coming up in 4 days, which I think was the case, which is why I went against the Bengals there. Both of these teams might have been looking ahead to this, although the Ravens had a divisional rivalry game against the Browns. The one thing that might be inexcusable about that is that the Ravens collapsed. They had a double-digit lead, and they let that lead slip in that game. So I don't know what was up with that. It looked like they had the stranglehold on the game. They were going to be able to win, but they wound up losing the game. Cleveland, I think, wound up losing to Deshaun Watson, too, even though I think he was in there at the end of that game, or right near the end of it, but I guess he's out for the season now, which is a blow for the Browns for sure. But that game, at least, you can kind of excuse that loss a little bit more because it's a big division rivalry game against a good defense in the Browns, and the Ravens did wind up scoring a lot of points against the Browns. So I think the Bengals are kind of in the more embarrassed spot, at least, because their loss was more embarrassing, the Texans' loss, than the Ravens' loss to the Browns was. Not only that, but the other thing we have coming in here is this is an in-season road divisional revenge angle here where the Ravens won at Cincinnati earlier in the season. So it tends to be a decent angle in those divisional matchups where if the home team in the second matchup won the first game as like a road underdog, which I believe was the case in that one. I think the Ravens are about like a 3.5 point dog in that one, and they went into Cincinnati and won the game. Then it tends to be a good lean to go with the road team in that second game, getting that revenge because this team came into our house and beat us there. We're going to be extra motivated, and there might be a little bit extra line value on the Bengals coming into this game now because of that, because the Ravens beat them in their own house. That and the line is telling you the Ravens are like the slightly better team here. Still, yeah, I mean, I suppose I would say that is the case, but I think the Bengals might be like a little bit undervalued. I think these teams are like close to being even, but the Bengals like rough start to the season makes their record look a little bit worse than it is. And I think this game means a little bit more to the Bengals as well, because I think if the Ravens lose, they are still going to have the lead over the Bengals in the division, I believe. But if the Bengals lose, they're out of it basically. Like they'll be fighting for a wild card spot, but the Ravens, I think, would have like a big lead in the division if the Ravens were able to get this win. So I think it means more to the Bengals. And as an underdog, when you have a team that's more desperate than the favorite is, which I think might be the case here, that's the way that I would look. So I would look to the Bengals in that one slightly. It's not going to be a play though. Let's go to my actual plays, and I said I would not do it again, but the Green Bay Packers are going to be it, man. After 2 losses on them, I said I'm not going to play the Packers again, but in this spot, it's like it almost looks like I have to do it, man. The Chargers have 85% of the tickets, but only 74% of the cash. It looks like they might be going up a little bit as a road favorite of 3. It looks like it's 3 with juice now, too. I was able to take the Packers plus 3 reduced juice on this one, so Chargers are the public road favorite. Everybody loves that Chargers offense. Nobody loves what they're seeing out of the Packers, as usual. The Packers have looked awful, but the Packers defense actually isn't that bad, and their offense has looked worse than it actually is because Jordan Love keeps turning the ball over. And the recipe for that might be facing a bad defense like the Chargers. Like Green Bay, their offensive struggles, they might be able to actually do something about that when they face one of the weakest defenses they're going to face this year, and that is the case with the Chargers. Chargers have a pretty good offense, even though I think they rely too heavily on Keenan Allen. Their defense is a huge problem, but this is about the spot, too. So the Chargers, they came off a Monday night game, and then on a short week, they had a barn burner of a game against a good team from the NFC, the Lions, coming into their house, and that was a back-and-forth game, close game, basically like all the way. It was close right near the end, and the Chargers fell just short of the Lions there. So coming off that game, a big effort, high-flying game where you're running all over the place, putting a lot of effort in that one. Now you have to go up to Green Bay where, I don't know, I think it's going to be, I guess it's not going to be that cold, but it is going to be rainy and in the 40s. So not good weather. Are you really going to want to go into Green Bay after that? And who do you have up next but a playoff team in the Ravens there? And I know the Chargers are like fighting like to even be a wild card currently here. They do have some more winnable games coming up here, but I still think this is a sandwich spot, and it's an out-of-conference road game sandwiched in between a game against games against better teams, the Lions and the Ravens. So I think it's possible they might overlook the Packers here. And the Packers, they're coming off of a game where really I think they should have won the game. It was ridiculous that they weren't even able to cover this game. The Steelers keep like winning on opponent mistakes, man. The Steelers sitting at 6-3. Steelers are definitely, they have a better record than the team actually is. Mike Tomlin, very good coach. He's doing a lot with maybe some limitations on offense, such as a quarterback named Kenny Pickett, not George Pickens, Kenny Pickett. But really, yeah, the Steelers are just getting by on a lot of mistakes here. And as you can see, Green Bay outgained them, and they committed 2 turnovers that were really crucial. Jordan Love threw an interception in the end zone. I think they had a missed extra point or something in this game too. And it's just like, it's just crazy, man. The Green Bay, was it a missed field goal? I can't remember. There was some other like kicking mistake, I think, on the side of Green Bay there. But Green Bay fell half point short of covering the spread there, and they were winning in the third quarter and probably should have covered. Green Bay, it's kind of an ugly way to lose, man. Coming back home, And facing a bad defense like this might be the cure for what ails you. Like they got to turn it around in some way, and they might be focused, even though they do have a big divisional game against the Lions, which is kind of tough actually. They have to turn around and play on Thursday, but I still think it's a bad spot for the Chargers, man. So that's the way I'm going here. And I actually forget because we have 3 Thanksgiving games here. So the other one's 49ers Seahawks. So that's interesting as well. But yeah, I'm going to have to go with Green Bay there. I think it's not a good spot. Yeah, I'm actually not playing any of the quick turnaround games, really. Maybe I should be for the Thanksgiving slate, but we'll talk about all 3, like some of those games as well. But yeah, that's it for that. Green Bay +3 is going to be that first one. I think it's a spot where, even though you have that Lions game upcoming, you're a 3-6 team. You have a big name team like the Chargers coming into your house. I think you're going to want to get that win. So I think that's the way I look at that with Green Bay. Play number 2 is going to be on the Arizona Cardinals +5. Arizona, man. Yeah, this is crazy. This is more of play going against their opponent, though. So what do we have with the Cardinals here? The Cardinals, they're not playing the Rams this week. They're playing the Houston Texans. So just like I said, I was going to talk about the Texans. The Texans are they've gone up, I guess, from 4.5 to 5 as a home favorite now. 69% of the tickets on them, but only 57% of the cash. So the public loves C.J. Stroud and this Texans offense, man, and they certainly do not love the Cardinals, who've only won 2 games. Houston Texans, they're scoring a ton. That's what the public likes. But now I think the stock's too high on the Houston Texans, man. They're at home. They're a fairly substantial favorite now at home, and they're the Texans. Like, do they really deserve to be that much of a favorite against anyone? Maybe not. They're coming off a huge game against the Bengals. They went in and beat the Bengals. Like I said, a big upset at Cincinnati against a probable playoff team there. Huge game. Now they get to face the lowly Arizona Cardinals. They might look right past them because who do they have next? Division rival, Jacksonville Jaguars, even though they did blast the Jaguars already once this year. That's a huge game to look ahead to there. I think it's a sandwich spot. I think it's a look ahead to the Jaguars, and I think they're coming off a big game against the Bengals. So the Bengals were in the sandwich spot against them last week. Houston is in the sandwich spot this time. That's what I think. I think it's a bad spot for Houston. And the Cardinals, they were somehow able to do it, man. They were able to get that win against the Falcons. And I think that might be a momentum starter for the Cardinals. So that was that first game. That was a first game with Kyler Murray returning to the team and with James Conner coming back. I think they both returned in that game. So you might say, well, that should have like over-adjusted the line on that. It would be like that reverse injured player theory, and it's going to take them a while to like get going again. But when you're a team with 1 win, I think that kind of winds up not being the case that much because you just need any win you can get. So they seemed like they were focused enough, even though they almost dropped the game. There was that back and forth at the end where they blew the lead, gave up a touchdown. Falcons put in Desmond Ridder again after Heineke wasn't really getting it done. They put him back in. He got a rushing touchdown to take the lead. It looked like the Falcons were going to pull it out at the end, and then Arizona flipped the script again. I think they had a big kickoff return or something, and they were able to get back within it, and I think they wound up winning on a field goal after they went down 1 at the end there. Kyler Murray, he looked like he's ready to go, man. He looked like his old self. He looked good. He's back, and James Conner is back, and that significantly changes Arizona's offense because now you have to scheme for everything that Kyler Murray does. Running quarterback, he can throw the ball. He can do a lot of damage to you in different ways. James Conner's back. He's a very good running back. So Houston's now going to have to prepare for all of that. Houston's defense isn't that good, and I don't think they're going to be ready for this. I think Arizona is still going to be undervalued because they're sitting at that 2-8 record, and nobody's really going to want a part of them. Even still, nobody's going to put much stock in them beating the Atlanta Falcons. I don't think nobody's going to really care about that. This is a bad spot for Houston, though. It's a sandwich spot. I think Arizona's being overlooked here. I think they might be overlooked by the Texans and by the betting public here. I think they're well, I don't know what else I can say about that. I think their offense, with these guys back, is being undervalued here for sure. Texans, I don't know if they should be favored like this against too many teams. Maybe if it was the Giants, you could see it. But I like it. I like Arizona +5. That's going to be number 2. And then number 3, we're going to one of the night games, so I don't have to talk about it additionally. Not going in chronological order anymore because I'm going to go back and talk about a couple of these games real quick. But Minnesota Vikings plus 2.5 is going to be the last play. And it looks like the market's going against me, and I don't agree with the market here. It looks like they're just sitting at Broncos are sitting at 2.5 at home. Looks like 61% of the tickets are on the Minnesota Vikings for some reason, and the Broncos have 52% of the cash. But I'm not sure if I really buy that, man, because yeah, like the reason why I'll tell you the reasons why I'm going against Denver. I mean, yeah, it is true that the Vikings have the better record, so people might be looking at that. But Kirk Cousins is out now, but the Vikings have won both games with Josh Dobbs. It's been like the story. Like, how long can Josh Dobbs keep this up? Like, is he being overvalued? Maybe he is, but in this spot, I don't think he is. So even though, yeah, maybe this is why the public is kind of still on the Minnesota side a little bit because they're an underdog getting points and they have the better record. So I do tend to say that that looks a little bit suspicious in a lot of cases, but I'm fading the spot for Denver here, man. This is a bad spot for Denver. They beat the Chiefs, which is a huge game, huge win for the Broncos, but I think the Chiefs were in kind of a bad spot there because the Chiefs had already beaten the Broncos 2 games prior to that, or 2 weeks prior to that, or whatever, in a primetime game. And the Chiefs might have been looking ahead to their upcoming Germany game against the Miami Dolphins. So they might have looked past Denver in that second matchup against them, having already beaten them once. So that might have been what happened there. Denver took advantage, and they were able to look good and win that game. And then what did we just see them do most recently? They played was that the Monday night game? I think it was the Monday night game, and they beat the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. A huge win. Like, everybody saw that game against a team that everybody knows how good the Bills are, and they know they're a potential playoff team even still, even though that knocked the Bills currently out of the playoff. Like, if the playoffs were to start right now, the Bills wouldn't make it, but I think the Bills still will wind up making it. And it caused the Bills to fire their OC as well, which I thought was a weird move because I don't think their offense has been that bad. I think it's been more like coaching and mistakes on the Bills' side, discipline. And that was the case in this Denver game, man. The thing about this, so this is a big win and a short week now for Denver. They're coming off a primetime win that everybody saw against a big team, a big upset for Denver on Monday night. Huge win. And then who do they have up next? Well, they have the Cleveland Browns, who's another potential playoff team, a big team in the AFC. And I think it's a sandwich spot. Sandwich between that, they have the Vikings, an NFC team. I don't know if anybody's going to be putting that much stock into the Vikings winning 2 games against Atlanta and New Orleans, 2 teams that are in probably the worst division in football. I don't know if anybody's going to think that the Vikings are that great because of that, even though it does look like the public is on them a little bit because of their record there, their record being above 500 and Denver's being below 500. But Denver's just, I think they're in too bad a spot here, coming off 2 big wins, having a pretty big AFC matchup next as well, and having a short week because that game was the Monday night game. But also, I think Denver looked better than they actually were in that Monday night game. They got out-yarded by Buffalo. The story of the game was this turnover discrepancy. Buffalo -3 in turnovers. Just, you're not going to win the game like that. And if you watch that game, it seemed like pretty much every time Buffalo even had the ball, they were just easily marching down the field with it. It was all turnovers that stopped their drives. I think they punted like once. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but it seemed like they only punted once in the whole game. Like, when they didn't turn it over, Denver couldn't even stop them, and it was bad. It looked like Denver wasn't even fielding a defense, really. They were just missing coverages really badly. Like you saw in one of those Buffalo touchdowns, they were missing tackles, couldn't tackle people. It was just bad. It was kind of shocking that Denver actually wound up winning that game outright, really. Even though I picked Denver in my pools to cover against the spread in that one, but Denver looks better than they actually are in that game. Like, yeah, the statistics tell a different tale, tell you that Buffalo actually outplayed them a bit, and Denver's defense still looked putrid in that game, and I think it still is. Minnesota, I still think teams are going to be overlooking them, and even like the betting public, I think, might be overlooking, even though they're on this huge win streak here. It doesn't like feel like it because they lost Kirk Cousins, and now they've won these games. These last 3 games haven't been that impressive. They beat the Packers, who aren't playing well. Who really cares? Falcons, even the Saints, even though the Saints have a good defense, it's like, who really cares? And the Vikings don't have Justin Jefferson now either, so they have those major injuries on offense. So it's like, how long can they keep it up? But so in this game, though, I think it's just such a bad spot for Denver that I kind of just have to do it. So that's going to be it. So hopefully I'm not screwing myself here with taking some odd plays here. But the plays are Green Bay +3, Arizona +5, and Minnesota +2.5. Those are the ways I'm going to look. I think Arizona's probably the strongest of those three. That's how I'm going to look in these. And then real quickly, what else do we got going on in these? I saw a few other ones. So I said Steelers-Browns. Looks like the Browns have gone down from -4.5 to -1 at home. I mean, I think the 4.5 probably was like the look ahead the week before that. I don't think it's been sitting there the whole time. And they're sitting with 57% of the cash and of the tickets on them. But the Browns, they're in a letdown spot because they're coming off that huge, epic comeback, huge win over the Ravens. But, actually, I'm an idiot. The line is moved because Deshaun Watson's out. That's why. So P.J. Walker is going to be back in and Deshaun Watson's back out. So, yeah, I don't want to touch this game. But the Browns, they're in a letdown spot because they had a huge win over the Baltimore Ravens, huge win. So I would not want anything to do with the Browns. But now with the Deshaun Watson's out again, you have the line dropping because of that. And P.J. Walker coming in. I don't know. The line might be overreacting a little bit again to P.J. Walker. We saw him. He played a couple games earlier this season, and the Browns weren't that bad. They're mostly a defensive team, really. So they were more than serviceable, I guess, without Watson in there. So the line might be overreacting to that. So you have that injured player theory aspect of it. Walker, they're used to playing with him because he's already played a couple games this year. And yeah, they might step it up a little. They might be motivated to step it up just a little bit because of that injury, whereas they otherwise wouldn't because they're coming in. They're coming off of that letdown spot, or they're coming off of that huge win, so it could be a letdown spot. But they're also playing division rival who's ahead of them, I believe, the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that might have the Browns focus as well. So it's an interesting spot, and the Steelers are kind of coming off of a win that isn't that great, really, and I think they know it against the Packers, where they like barely scraped by. Maybe they had one eye on this game. I think they probably did. So, if Deshaun Watson was still playing, I think this would be a pretty strong lean against the Browns. But because of that injured player theory dropping the line on the Browns, I kind of just want to stay away from it. But the scheduling spot is bad for the Browns in a letdown spot coming off of that big win. But the Browns did also, I believe. No, the Steelers beat them at Pittsburgh, so that might also motivate the Browns. Yeah, the Steelers beat them early in the season, which was kind of a surprising result to some people. So that might also motivate the Browns a little bit. So there's, kind of weird situational angles conflicting with each other on that one. So not much else to say on that. It's kind of the way I look there. Washington Commanders, they're up to from 8 to 9 at home against the Giants. 87% of the cash on them, but only 84% of the tickets. When I first looked at this, I was like, I kind of want to go against the Commanders because they have a game against the Dallas Cowboys on Thursday, on Thanksgiving. That's a big game for the Commanders to look, so they might be in a look ahead. But they lost so badly at the Giants, and the Giants are so bad that it's like, are they actually going to overlook the Giants, a team that almost shut them out? That was a game where the Commanders scored 0 up until like almost the very end there. They finally put a touchdown, and they only lost 14-7. But because they lost to the Giants, and the Giants haven't beaten almost anybody this year, hardly anybody that they've beaten, the Commanders might cause them to focus like just a little bit on the Giants where they otherwise wouldn't, because they might have that huge look-ahead scenario there going. It's actually even kind of a sandwich for the Commanders because they just had a tough, tight game out in Seattle where they were playing Seattle pretty tough and lost the game at the end. And I think, did the game go into overtime, or maybe it was a last-minute field goal that Seattle won? I don't remember. The Commanders are winning that game pretty late in the game. So they are coming off that, and they have the quick turnaround to the Thanksgiving game against Dallas. But I'm staying off of it just because they're kind of, just because they might be focused a little bit just because the Giants did beat them earlier in the season. So that's the one thing that kind of keeps me off of that game a little bit there. I don't know if the Jaguars might be looking ahead. They're a 6.5-point favorite at home, 90% of the cash, but 89% of the tickets. So they're a public home favorite as well. They might have a look ahead to the Houston Texans, who really crushed them earlier this year. And the Titans are coming off a bad loss to the Buccaneers. But the Jaguars are also coming off a bad loss to the San Francisco 49ers. So I don't know what to think about that. 49ers, by the way, they're up to an 11.5-point home favorite with 96% of the cash, but only 95% of the tickets. I would lean against the 49ers because they came out of that bye and they just whacked the Jaguars. The 49ers just looked too good again. They looked like what everybody thought they were earlier in the season, just totally dominant win. It was a good spot for them, having lost 3 games going into the bye, and the Jaguars going into the bye on a huge win streak. It was a momentum disruptor in both ways. It disrupted the 49ers' negative momentum and the positive momentum for the Jaguars. So it was a good spot for the 49ers and a bad spot for the Jaguars, and the 49ers wrecked them, and the 49ers have the Seattle Seahawks up next, so that's kind of a big game to look forward to. They're only like challenger in their division basically at this point, so could be a sandwich-ish spot for the 49ers here, so I would only lean to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers there, even though I believe the Buccaneers are coming off a nice win as well over the Titans. Nobody really cares if you beat the Titans, so I think it's a bad spot for the 49ers there in between 2 bigger games for them. And on the other end of that matchup, the Seahawks and Rams. Seahawks have gone down from 2.5 to 1 as a road favorite at the Rams. The Rams have 68% of the cash, but only 53% of the tickets. So it looks like there is money moving the line towards the Rams. I don't know if it looks like they do have the cash discrepancy, but the question mark here is Matthew Stafford coming back? And it looks like this line might be indicating that he is, because I don't know how many points he's actually worth. It looks like he should be worth a decent amount, though, really, because the Rams did not play well without him. So I think this is a better spot for the Rams. And I think the Rams might have had a bye last week as well. And they had a really ugly loss, I believe, to the Packers before that. I mean, it was that game without, was that what the Rams were on? It was that game without Stafford in there, and then they went into a bye. I think that might be the case for the Rams. So the Rams are in the more positive spot if that's the case. Yeah. So they had that bad loss without Stafford at Green Bay, went into a bye. Now they come out and they play the Seahawks. I think it's a much better spot for the Rams. The Seahawks might be focused a little bit just because it's a divisional game. It's the one thing that keeps me off of it. That and the fact they almost lost to Washington and didn't play that well against Washington. But other than that, I think it is a good spot for the Rams. Well, there are 2 things that actually keep me off of the Rams. One being that the Seahawks might be focused because that was a close game against Washington. But the other thing is that if the Rams get Matthew Stafford back, then you're going to have that reverse injured player theory situation there where, it makes the team better when he's there, but the team played without him, so there might be that negative a little bit trying to get him back, but I don't know how complacent the team is going to be with him coming back because they didn't win. They didn't play well at all without him. So they might not have that mental thing where it's we won without him. So now we might take our foot off the gas a little bit when he comes back. I don't think that's going to be the case. You have the Seahawks coming in, so I think that's less of a factor. The reverse injured player theory, if Stafford comes back, would be a bit less of a factor there, even though it will certainly affect the line a little bit, and it might mean you won't be able to find line value on the Rams there. But the Seahawks do have a huge look ahead. That's the other component here to the game against San Francisco. So I think it's, a major look ahead at the very least for the Seahawks. And that's the Seahawks 49ers game, I think, is the night game on Thanksgiving, too. So it's a quick turnaround to look to there. So I think the Rams would be the only way to lean in that one. And finally, I also lean against the Cowboys. They're up to it from 9.5 to 10.5 as a road favorite at the Panthers. They got 93% of tickets, but only 92% of the cash. Public all over the Cowboys, of course. I think this is a bad spot for them. I thought they were in a bad spot last week because they were coming off that heartbreaker that kind of everybody saw against the Eagles. That was kind of the game of the week there, a big game that they dropped. I thought they were maybe not going to be focused coming into a game against the Giants, who they already beat by 40. Well, they beat the Giants by 40 again, pretty much, 30-something. So they crushed the Giants again. Now they're coming off that. Now they have to go on the road to face the Carolina Panthers. Kind of a weird spot. And then 3 days later, they have a Thanksgiving game against Washington. Even though Washington's not a great team, the Giants aren't a great team. Those are still divisional matchups at least, and the Panthers are also not a good team. So I think this is a weird spot for them, and you're laying so many points on the road that the only way I would look there is to take the points with the Panthers, and this is a low total as well in the 42.5 range. So That's the only way I would look there. And kind of similar for the Buccaneers, taking 11.5 points with them, too. That total's at 41. So taking huge double-digit dogs in games where the total is that low is kind of the way to go in those ones. You're getting more value with the points. When the total is that low, those points mean even more. So the big spread looks even better in those games. But, yeah, that's the spot that the Cowboys are in. That game is at least sandwiched, I guess, sort of a sandwich spot between two divisional opponents, even though they're two bad divisional opponents. They looked way too good last week at the very least, and they have a quick turnaround and have a game that they know everybody's going to be watching on Thanksgiving. So this is definitely a spot where the Cowboys still might overlook their opponent because it's the very lowly Carolina Panthers on the road. So not a good spot for the Cowboys and to need them to win by a huge margin. Yeah, I don't think so. And finally, even though I said that was final, I do have to talk about the Monday night game very briefly. So Vikings-Broncos, it was the Sunday night game, which I already talked about what my feelings are there. I think the Broncos are in a bad spot. Monday night, I don't have much of a feel on this except for the market here. This is a big game. It's a good Monday night game. Eagles-Chiefs. And I think both of these teams had buys last week, so they're both coming out of buys. The Chiefs are sitting around a 2.5-point favorite. It looks like it's gone up a little bit at home with a little bit of juice. But it looks like 66% of the tickets and 55% of the cash on the Eagles. So it looks like the Eagles are still getting kind of the public betting there, but the Chiefs are kind of moving reverse line, moving against that, and maybe getting more of the bigger bets, more of the cash. So it looks like the market read would be on the Chiefs, even though maybe your instinct would be, but the recreational bettors might kind of have this instinct too. At least in this case, your instinct would be to go with the Super Bowl revenge angle here because everybody knows the Chiefs beat the Eagles in the Super Bowl, and the Eagles could have won that game, certainly. So there is that aspect of it. Like, people might think there's going to be, revenge on the Eagles' mind. And sure, I think that is a factor to some extent. But I think that's mitigated by the fact that this is just a big game for both teams. It's on Monday night. Both of these teams have really good records. It's not like the Chiefs are going to overlook the Eagles, even though the Eagles might have a slight extra motivation because of that Super Bowl revenge aspect of it, Super Bowl revenge angle. But the reason why I played the Chiefs in the Super Bowl in the game last year, and I did kind of get lucky in that one, but that would be the same reason, but I think it's even more exaggerated coming into this game, and the reason is that everybody's in love with the Eagles offense, and they love the Eagles offense. The Eagles have the better offense out of these two teams, so that's what everybody likes. They like the high-flying offenses. They love that. They love those star players on offense, even though you think you wouldn't be saying that when the Chiefs have Pat Mahomes and Travis Kelce, but the Chiefs' offense has been pretty anemic this year, and they've been putting up a lot of low-scoring point totals here. The other thing it's about the Chiefs, though, is that they also have a better defense this year. I believe they have the better defense than the Eagles this year. So even if the Eagles have the better offense, I think the Chiefs have the better defense. And in a game where they're either the underdog or the line is low like this, and it's basically picking the winner, I tend to like the better defense over the better offense. And they're the team that's going to get more overlooked, too, because the recreational bettors like offense better than defense. So that's kind of the way I look there. I actually lean to the Chiefs slightly in that one. It's definitely not going to be a play, though. And is there anything else I have to say about that? I don't really think so. I think that might be it. Yeah, I had something in my mind. I hate that one. It just slips my mind. What else was I going to? Oh, the Eagles also have a new offensive and defensive coordinator this year than they had last year during the Super Bowl. So different a little bit because they have different coordinators. So their schemes might be a little bit different this year as well. So I don't know if that might be a little bit of a factor. I don't know. But those are my thoughts on all those games. Once again, my plays are Green Bay +3, Arizona +5, and Minnesota +2.5. Hopefully it's not getting too risky here. I kind of stayed away from those double-digit dogs, even though I think Carolina and Tampa Bay are probably the next strongest ways that I would look here. And the Rams, maybe decent way to look, but I don't like when those injured players are coming back, and that kind of throws a wrench into everything. But that's the way I look at those. That's going to do it for me. I am Tower Getting Toad. You can follow me on Twitter for my humor, my politics, political shit posting, and follow the Tower Gang Podcast for the most offensive podcast on the planet. We are at towergangpod.com. We're on Odyssey, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify. You can find us at all these places. The most offensive comedy podcast ever, man. We did an episode last night with Lord Miles, the world traveler who spent a lot of time being imprisoned or maybe hanging out with the Taliban. I don't know. You decide. If you go watch the episode that we had last night, he told us some awesome tales. I love that guy. It's a fun show. Bit of a different episode for us. Fun to do for sure. So check that out. Check out the Tower Gang Podcast. That's going to do it for me, I believe. I'm Tower Gang Toad. Hopefully these bets come through, man. And check out my college football video I just did as well. And I'm going to have another daily breakdown. It's early in the morning. I'm going to be doing that in a little bit, shortly. Peace out, guys. Get that money.